Hey guys, Maria here. Welcome to my podcast or welcome back. And if you're new, I am so happy to have you here. If you read the title, you already know today we're talking about the topic, maybe it's you. And this is the most triggering part of anyone's growth journey in your self actualization, in your awakening, in your soul growth, in your ascension, in your realization of your own mistakes, hurts, and truths. The hardest part to digest is maybe it's you, because in everyone's mind, in any situation, in any fight, in any blowout, in any tragedy, in any failure, you are always the victim. And a lot of the time things do happen to you and they're out of your control. But in other times we need to take a step back and take accountability for our actions. When I decided to embark on the journey of self-growth and soul evolution and enhancing myself as a person, I had to face all of my stuff. The stuff that I would run away from, the stuff that I wanted to forget, the stuff that would keep me up at night when you just have flashbacks, right? And a big part of growing yourself and your soul and your spirit and just you as a person is being able to step out of yourself and look at things from someone else's perspective. When I started doing this, especially in things where I felt so hurt, where some things may have been done to me, but I couldn't see my own self in that situation. I couldn't see my reactions and I couldn't see my actions because I was so wounded and blinded by the hurt. I started stepping out of that reality and seeing things from an outside lens. And I realized that, damn, I could have handled that situation better. Sometimes we have our signature blowouts, fights, things that change our lives, failures, just a lot of things happen in life. It's just an ongoing season with different people, with different situations, in different places. And these situations are heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking and it hurts. Why? Because you care. When we look at things like relationships and dynamics and friendships, and we look back on our lives, if we want to grow, if we want to enhance as people, sometimes it's important to look at yourself in that situation. Maybe you were toxic, Maybe you could have done things differently. Maybe you know that what you said triggered that person to react the way that they were. Maybe you were poking and prodding. Maybe you were just partly to blame. That's why people say that there's always your truth, their truth, and the real truth, because in anyone's point of view, they're the victim. In looking back at things, I was the queen of victim mentality. Everything was happening to me and was never happening because of me. Sometimes in life, we are put in situations that we can't change, circumstances that dictate where we are, but at some point, you need to stand in your truth and your power and realize that you are where you are because of who you are, right? Sometimes circumstances can make us be somewhere or be someone or live in a certain reality, but it becomes your choice whether you're going to stay there or whether you're going to make your dreams come true in spite of where you are. So many trauma relationships and bonds. I was looking back at it and I'm like, wow, that was really messed up what happened to me or what other people did to me or how messed up the situation was. But then I was thinking about it and I'm like, you were actually shady then. You could have done better. You could have been a better person. I also inflicted pain on this person. And for example, I have a thing of, I'm fixing this, but I never used to be able to stand up for myself. So people would do things to me and I would just take it and take it and take it and take it. I never used to say what bothered me. I would just secretly brew within myself, and it would be brewing and festering and stewing. I would never say anything because confrontation literally, like, it could bring me down as a person to the point of a full-blown panic attack. So I'm being thrown into confrontational situations is not me, and I would never go into it voluntarily. So I kind of became a bit of a doormat. But in that type of dynamic, even though people are doing things to me and bad things to me, I'm enduring it, right? And they don't know that they're doing it to me because I haven't said that they're doing it to me. So in their mind, everything is fine, and I haven't vocalized my discrepancies. So they keep on happening, and I'm hurt, but I'm hurt alone, and they don't know that. Now, Mudiwa, on the other hand, will like let this go on for years. And then suddenly, when it's like the kettle, if you've had a kettle on the stove, it's now whistling. When the kettle is whistling, now I'm going to erupt and just explode all my discrepancies. I will write you a 10-page essay of everything that has been bothering me about the situation. And you won't even know that that was the issue. You won't even know that there was an issue. But the thing is, in my mind, I'm like, how do you not know that that's wrong? I might be totally justified in the fact that all of these little things were wrong, but how I conduct addressing it needed to be changed. So that's something within me. I am rightfully hurt because those things were unjust things done to me, and I am hurt by it, but I'm also wrong, and that person has a right to be upset because I unloaded like 6 months, 2 years, 1 year worth of baggage on that person. And that's if you even get that type of response, because sometimes I'll just disappear. I'll leave. I'll literally leave. And there are a few people where this has happened with, but like, I'll just cut you off completely. I think there are only 2 people. And I'll fall off the face of the earth, and you'll be like, dude, like, this person just stopped being friends with me or stopped speaking to me. But the thing is, you've made me reach that point where the only thing I can do is choose myself. And in choosing myself, I totally separate. But in not speaking about why you're separating, the other person is now hurt, right? So maybe it was me too in the situation. Looking back at things, you'd be like, okay, maybe I was manipulative. Maybe I was emotionally manipulating someone. And maybe their reaction was them exploding in a situation, right? Sometimes you're where you are because of who you are, and acknowledging that you're toxic doesn't mean you have to stay being toxic. Sometimes when you're trying to change your life and change who you are and change your narrative, people will remind you about who you were. And that will make you revert back into that dynamic. Like, once a player, always a player. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Once a this, always a this. But that doesn't have to be the truth. I completely believe in growth. Everyone has an opportunity to change and enhance as a person. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done, there's always a room for growth and change. It's just up to you to enforce that in your life, right? However, when the world now associates you with that one thing, for a lot of people, because you're human and you're bound to this construct and guilt and this ego body and this human complex, it's hard for you to keep on pushing and trying to be a better person when people see you as who you were. If you, for example, were a reckless person, you partied all the time, or you were a druggie, or you were this, you were that, and people see you as in a certain light, and you're trying to change your narrative, it's hard because people remind you about who you were. But that is when you have to immerse yourself in the right type of people. The people who affirm who you are, the people who affirm and will remind you who you're going to be, the people who want to encourage you to be better, the people who want to encourage you to change your narrative. It is so important to surround yourself in people who believe in who you will be and who see beyond who you are now. Even if who you are now is a good place, if you're vibrating great, you're working on yourself, you're enhancing, you also need to surround yourself with people who see beyond that and the vision beyond that and what you're trying to achieve, because stagnation is also a real thing. If you're around people who aren't progressing and trying to work on themselves and move forward, you're going to either stagnate and stay in the same space, or you're going to regress. There has to be some form of momentum, and there has to be some form of direction of where we're going. Who you surround yourself with is so important. And I know they always say that you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. But I remember when I was in the worst parts of my life, when I was stagnating, when I was just hitting a plateau, I always used to make excuses for the people that I surrounded myself with. I'm like, I don't have to be the average of the 5 people that I surrounded myself with, because I myself acknowledge that I don't want to be them. I looked at the 5 people that I spent the most of my time with, and I didn't want that to be my narrative and that reality, right? And I'd always make excuses for it, but I'm like, it's telling you something. And when I look back at that time, that was my worst. That's when I was going through the worst. That's when I was depressed. That's when I was angry. That's when I was literally spiraling, because I'm the type of person who is always thinking about like goals and achievements and who I'm going to be and what I'm going to get and where I'm heading. And I have this view of the future, and I want to change the world, and I want to do this and I want to do that. But in going through a downward spiral, at times I realized that when I was in a not great space, I surrounded myself with people who I could just be my worst self around, and they wouldn't judge me for it. And the people that I was closest to, then people that I knew who knew me the best, I stayed away from, and I didn't immerse myself in those people, because they would say something and they wouldn't be okay with how I was living. But then in immersing yourself with people who you can literally forget the world and self-destruct around, that's not good, because sometimes you just want to be, but just being is running away from yourself and it's not facing yourself. I was the orchestrator of my own demise. And let me paint this picture. When I was going through a downward spiral and depressed, I'm not the one who put myself there, but the ongoing spiral was due to myself, right? It's like someone could set your trousers on fire, but when you could maybe run to the bathroom and run your foot under a tap or just make a plan to stop the fire, sometimes we just watch it burn because we're not the ones who started the fire. Like, my depression wasn't my fault. Where I wasn't my choice. But it came to the space of, like attracts like. So when you're in an abundant mindset and energy and space, you attract more abundance. I was in a very depressed, dark, angsty, hateful space, so I was attracting more of that into my life. I was in a downward spiral, and it's like, I remember when I got my mental health diagnosis, I remember like a flip switched in my head where I was like, okay. And for the first time in my life, I gave up. I gave up. Why? Because I had an excuse to give up. I kept on fighting that whole time. It was terrible, but I kept on fighting. Why? Because I didn't know that these things were happening to me. So now that I had a scapegoat, I started dwindling and I started giving up and I stopped trying. And like, it was just a downward spiral and a downward spiral, and things kept happening to me. I'm here because of you. I'm doing this because of you. You don't understand me. You don't do this and you don't do that and you don't do this. But at the end of the day, like when it was like a year of this and 2 years of this and 3 years of this, I had to like, the me's within me and my higher self had to come down and shake myself awake and be like, fam, you now need to do something about this, because we get it. Like, where you are is not due to, is not your fault, but you staying here is now totally up to you. It's up to you now to change your life. Maybe your circumstances are meant to be your circumstances. Maybe your circumstances are your truth, but you need to change it. You deserve to change it, and you deserve the reality that you want to acquire. Like the people that I looked up to the most in life, I was obsessed with business from a very young age. So when it came to role models and people that I was like, whoa, I would research a lot of businessmen, and I would read up on their stories, and from zero to hero and against all odds. And it's funny because that was always going to be my story. I'm going to start a Fortune 500 company. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be on Forbes 100. I'm going to do all these things. But all of my heroes went through a trial period where they had to fight, where they had stagnation, where things weren't happening for them, where you were trying to make a reality come true that wasn't working, where you had to go against the grain of what people believe because your reality and what you wanted for yourself, what they wanted for themselves, was different than what was presented to them. All of my heroes and all of the people that I looked up to and all of the stories that I resonated with had this period of trial, of self-destruction, and then of self-discovery, soul-searching and finding your truth and acting on your truth. The reason why my greats were my greats was because they acted on what they believed and they acted on their truth, and they became who they were in spite of their circumstances, against all odds. People hear against all odds and think that the odds will be in their favor when they're going against all odds. No. That's why people talk about highlight reels and you don't see what came before. I love the fact that I've started a YouTube channel and I have this podcast before I am who I'm going to be, because if there's anyone that I would bet my life on is myself. I have this vision and I have these goals and I have this idea of the future. I really and truly, all of these aspirations, all of these dreams, all of these milestones will mean nothing to me if I haven't impacted people in the process. And I'm sitting here in the grind stage, in the intermediary stage, before Mudiwa becomes the Mudiwa that people know for generations. Like when I'm still making myself me. The Steve before the Steve Jobs, the Zuckerberg before he was Zuckerberg, the Strive Masiwa before he was Strive Masiwa, the Bill Gates before he was Bill Gates, the Basquiat before he was Basquiat, the Michael Jackson before he was Michael Jackson. The person behind the manifestation. Malcolm before he was Mac Miller, Nate before he was NF, Marshall before he was Eminem, Robin before she was Rihanna. You know what I mean? And we're all sitting here and we're like, I have this dream. The Aubrey before he was Drake. How can I forget that one? Like, you're sitting there and you're like, I have this vision for the future. I know I have to do something. I know who I am. And I went through this stage where I kept on trying to tell people who I was. I kept on trying to explain to people who I was. I kept on trying to tell people that, like, this is the reality that I believe in, instead of just doing it. The only person who can live in your present moment and your finished line simultaneously is you. And I had to realize that and just get to doing. Because at the end of the day, I am putting myself in all of these mediums so I can reach people who are meant to change the world. And I believe everyone's supposed to change the world. Everyone is supposed to do their part in saving the universe, in raising consciousness, in changing the world. We just need to tap on who we really are. You have to tap into your truth, right? You just have to tap in your truth. Like, put your blinders on, forget what everyone else is doing. That sidetracks you so much. I get so distracted and anxious and jealous, and I'll be looking at what other people are doing, and it's like, yeah, run your own race, because at the end of the day, my testimony is going to be different from your testimony. It's going to be different from his testimony. And we may have similarities, but my own is my own and your own is your own. And I'm sitting here, 2 singles out, both with less than 500 views on YouTube. I have 216 subscribers on YouTube. I've been on YouTube for 4 years now. I have 4,000 followers on Instagram. I am yet to finish my degree. I haven't started my brand yet, which is coming out this year. I have so many aspirations. Like my music video, like Why Wait, is finally finished. It's going to be out next month on 11/11, and things are like progressing and the momentum is building. But I'm sitting here before the manifestations have manifested to tell you that you can do it, and you have to find your truth. Forget what people tell you, forget what people think, forget what people think is your reality, and trust and believe in what you believe. Once you acknowledge that you are where you are because of who you are, you have the power to change your life. Because once you've taken accountability, you can do something about it. If you don't know you're the problem, how are you ever going to fix the problem? I'll say it again. If you don't know you're the problem, how are you ever going to fix the problem? And fixing the problem starts with you. This story is just it's a story of the ages. For example, The Alchemist. It always circles back to yourself. And we have to tap into this inner knowing. We have to tap into our truths. We have to tap into this higher consciousness to find out who we really are. The reason why I was at war with myself all these years is because I kept on living a life that people thought I should live, that I thought people wanted me to live, that I did for other people to make them proud and happy, and I wasn't living my truth. And I had to figure out what was my truth. And then I was like in my 20s, I was 22, and I didn't know who I was, and I just had a breakdown. Now I have to reacquaint myself with myself. Who's Mudiwa? I had the biggest breakdown. It's like my midlife crisis came early. I didn't know who I was because I was wearing a mask for so long. And I just kept on spiraling. I was that person who was so sure of myself, so sure of my goals. And it's almost like I found validation in knowing that I was going to be successful. I found validation in the titles that I was going to bestow on myself for the future. I'm sitting in front of my vision board right now because it's okay to want things. To say that I want a Grammy, or I want a championship, or I want a ring, that's totally fine. You can manifest what you want and your desires. That's totally fine. It's just you also have to think about your why and your impact on the world. Showing people it's possible, showing people what you're capable of. There's a reason you were created the way you were for a reason. Your engineering is the way it is for a reason. You're passionate about the things you're passionate about for a reason. You are the way you are for a reason. And when you start following the things that scream within you, like some people may just really, 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 really need to be known by people. And that drive to have an impact or a large following may be because you have wisdom to bestow upon that large following. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be popular. Some people have this desire within them because they're supposed to influence the masses. Someone might be like, I need to change the world of medicine. Why? Because within you is this seed, and the seed has to bloom into something that's revolutionary. Someone is just sitting there like, I am going to create some sort of art that people have never seen before. And that is all you can think, dream, and believe. And I'm going to change the way the people see the world. And you have to follow that, is because you're there, you're on earth for a reason. If everyone connected their inner truths and their inner selves and their higher selves, which is why we raise our vibrations, because what raising your vibration means is that everyone has a higher self, a spirit, your basically your truest self in a spiritual form. And then we have our physical selves as we see now, which is bound by ego and the construct of humanity. if you are a Christian and you don't understand this, Adam and Eve ate the apple, hence the ego body construct of humanity. If you understand vibration, you understand the 5D, the 3D, and the separation between the two and your higher self. So you have this higher self and you have you now. Raising your vibration is closing the gap between your higher self and your 3D self. And you close the gap and you close the gap and you close the gap. That's how you manifest more. That's how you connect more to your intuition, because your intuition is your higher self speaking to you. And your higher self knows truth. And your higher self knows what you want, what you need, and what you're trying to attract for real. So the more we connect to our intuition, the more we know our truths. And the more we detach from our ego, because sometimes our ego is working from such a material place that is more associated with perception, external perception, than internal gratification and impact. The higher you vibrate, the more the dialogue, well, the more clearly the dialogue between yourself and your intuition becomes. And when that happens, you're able to exist in your truest self, independent from your ego body, and in the truest version that you could offer to this world. I was so attached to certain things. I was so attached to certain aesthetics. And like, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with liking nice things. Everyone has particular tastes for a reason. Some people really like taking pictures. Just because you like your Instagram looking good or taking pictures or creatively expressing yourself through visuals, it doesn't make you any less of an awakened soul than someone else. Maybe that's just your art, right? It doesn't make you vain. It doesn't make you totally centered around your ego. It's just who you are. And you need to tap into yourself to realize, is that who you are? Because that is a subset of your passions, and it doesn't dictate your worth. Your worth is what you find within yourself, not what the world can give you. And once you basically separate those two, identify those two, you're able to properly impact the world the way that you're supposed to. As per usual, Mudiwa has gone through a million thoughts at once. I have touched on so many different subjects, but at the end of the day, this conversation was about connecting to your truth, becoming the realest you could possibly be, and it all starts with acknowledging that maybe it's you. Maybe you're where you are because of who you are. And the beauty is, once you make that realization, you have the power to change your life and you have the power to change your truth. I hope I've made someone think out there. I hope I've started the dialogue within some people's psyches and their reality. I hope I've started the dialogue within your own self. And I hope people change their lives after listening to this. I am running out of space in my camera, so I'm going to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast, to Light and Love. If you want to catch me on my other platforms, Instagram and Twitter is MudiChats, MUDIE_CHATZ. YouTube, simply Mudiwa. And if you want to check out the music, type in Midnight's Muse on all streaming platforms. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but my single Why Wait is out on 11/11/2020. We're going to manifest greatness, we're going to manifest truth, and I'm ready to share my translation with the world, because I spend so much time thinking, and there's no point in thinking that I'm wise or I have wisdom or I have something to impart on the world if I don't impart it. What's the use of knowing you're legendary if no one else knows that you are, you know? So yeah, I will catch you guys on the flip side. Light, love, and good vibrations, guys.